Hello, I want to show you how we can use astrology to help someone win an election. We're specifically going to focus on the candidates for President of the United States in the year 2020, and we will see how astrology can give us specific information on what a person can do to win and what they will do that will hurt their chances of winning. Now, the first thing I want to mention before we get into those details, there's a few things I want to go over. It may take me 15 or 20 minutes before I start telling you the specific things that the candidates should do if they want to win this election. But first, let me go over some things. Where are these ideas coming from? They're not coming from studying politics or history. They're coming from analyzing simpler things like athletic performance, success in music, emotional and mental illness. We've developed a model for how astrology works by analyzing what's in those charts. I've made dozens and dozens of videos about those things. It's very impressive, and we take those ideas and then we apply them to everything in life, such as politics. But it's very difficult to figure out why somebody got elected or what they did to help them get elected. And there's so many opinions and so many arguments and so many news shows of people arguing about what's right and what works. So I just want to let you know that I'm applying ideas from that understanding, which is much clearer and straightforward, and applying it to politics. Now, as you know, or you might know, maybe you don't know, I have a great track record for predicting outcomes of elections, outcomes of wars, and so on. But what the real value of astrology is, and the way astrology really works, is it tells us what's going on. What is the energy? What is the motivation? And we do not actually directly see what will happen. It's not like the astrology is this crystal ball that you look in the crystal ball and it goes, oh, Donald Trump will win that election in 2016. We're not actually seeing that. We're seeing what's happening. And then we look at what the people are doing. We're looking at how their birth charts are activated. And then we see probable outcomes. So if I get a prediction right, it's like a statistical probability. You know, they're not always going to be perfectly right. But what is more consistent is understanding what's happening and what you should do. So the real value of astrology is not that we know the future. It's that we have a better understanding of what strategy, what approach, what decisions should we make. So in this video, I'm going to show you what I think the candidates should do if they want to win. And let me give you one example from the past. In the year 2016, a few days before the election, I predicted that Donald Trump would do better than was expected, and he did do better than was expected. Most of the experts expected Hillary to win, and I predicted it would be much closer than that, and Trump could possibly win, and he did. Now, how did I do that? It's not that I had a crystal ball that told me he was going to win. There's two things. One is I figured the polls may not be that accurate because it's hard to poll the general public these days and find out what they really think. But more importantly, I watched what Hillary was doing 2 and 3 days before the election. I watched the news, at night, and I'm looking at Hillary and I'm going, oh my God, she's throwing away the election. If she keeps doing this, she could lose. I was stunned by what she was doing. And what she was doing is she had a rally, and she had people like what they call hip-hop music, Jay-Z and Beyonce, and it might look fairly innocent. Sure, she has popular people, no big deal. Maybe you like Beyonce, maybe you don't. Doesn't seem like a big deal. But astrologically, when you look at it, this is the worst thing you can do. Because in 2016, we were in a 13 vibration. In 2020, we're in a 13 vibration. And something like that can cost you the election. It's a huge mistake. Because 13 vibration is very decisive. It's very definitive. It's not politically correct. People are going to look at Jay-Z and say, do I want my son to grow up like Jay-Z, who has he's committed crimes and things like that? Do I want him to be singing the lyrics of the songs that these people singing? And they're thinking, no, I want better than that. 13 vibration has high goals, a sense of greatness, a sense of breaking beyond mediocrity. Now, I'm not saying that Beyonce is bad or Jay-Z is bad or that they're good. When I'm doing the astrological analysis, I don't even think about that, because that's just going to bias me by my personal orientation. I'm just thinking about, what does 13 vibration want? How is it going to move? And how is that going to bring the mass of people forward? And they're not going to like this. So, again, in politics and social behavior, nobody knows what caused what. If Hillary didn't have those rallies and she did them differently, you may think she would have done even worse. Maybe you think it's good. We don't know. Social behavior and in the context of politics is so complex. Everybody's going to have their own personal view, and you may disagree with me. That's fine. But what I want to share with you in this video is how we take the ideas that are easier to see and clearer from studying things like the greatest athletes or people with mental and emotional illness, how we apply it in this context, and we make specific recommendations, and how those recommendations generally work, and we generally see the outcomes that we expect. I mean, extremely consistently. Now, I want to show you one more thing before I tell you what my advice is. I have advice for the Democratic candidates. On the Republican side, we already know that Trump is going to be the candidate. But I have advice for, Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders and Amy Klobuchar and so on, for what will work, what will not work, things that they're doing now that I think work, things that I think they're doing now that won't work. And if you want them to lose, you can use this information to help them lose. If you want them to win, you can use this information to help them to win. So that's what the astrology can do. But before I do that, let me show you one more thing about what this forecast is based on. It's based on a relationship of Neptune and Pluto. And why Neptune and Pluto? Two reasons. One is our research showed that they're important. That's really the only reason. But secondarily, theoretically, it makes sense because Neptune and Pluto's orbits are not independent of each other. But I don't want to get into all that. I discussed that in other videos. What I want to show you here is that from about 1950 or so, over the last 50, 60, 70 years, Neptune and Pluto have maintained about the same distance from each other, because Pluto's moving relatively fast in its orbit, from about 50 degrees to 68 degrees, and it moves through these aspects. And as it moves through them, sometimes Neptune and Pluto are down around 51 to 52 degrees, 1/7 of a circle. We call that 7 vibration. And certain things happen when they're in 7 vibration. And sometimes they're in 13, sometimes they're sextile, sometimes they're up around 65 degrees, 2/11. And just to give you an idea of this, let me show you a different way of looking at it than I've shown in other videos. I've got a chart wheel up here in this Sirius 3.0 software. I'm going to go into, with just Neptune and Pluto, I've removed everything else. I made a little aspect grid, and in the lower right corner it shows the aspect between Neptune and Pluto. I set this up to demonstrate what goes on with Neptune and Pluto, and just using the customizing features in the program. And I'm going to go into the AstroClock. I'm going to start on January 1st, 1968. I want to show you the late 60s and what was happening. I'm going to click on this box to make it go very fast. And I want to show you this very cool, that this is moving very fast. We're in the middle of 1968. And you see this green line. And then it's going to turn into this, let's call it violet color. I'm not sure what the right word is for this color. And see how thick it gets. And it's going to alternate between the green sextile, down here in the aspect grid, it tells me it's sextile, and this violet, which down here tells me is the 2/11. And over the year, as Neptune and Pluto go direct and retrograde, it alternates between sextile and 2/11. So now we're up to 1971. By 1974, the 2/11 gets very weak, and by around 1975 it disappears. So as you watch this, we're now in the middle of 1972, still alternating between the sextile and the 211s. And what this means is that in the 60s, and this actually started before 1968, the tone that was set by Neptune and Pluto was 11, which is freedom, no restrictions, getting loose, getting wild, the 60s, and the sextile, which is tolerant, accepting, non-discriminating. So here you have the peace and flower and, be free and get free of all those old things. It just pervaded the world, not just in the United States, but this feeling spread far and wide. And where it didn't spread, people were feeling held down and repressed. So now we're up into 1976, and that freedom spirit of the 11 vibration has disappeared, and the mood has changed. Let me show you one more thing. Let's jump over to the current time period. I'll put in January 1st, 2018, apply this date, and just to show you what's happening, we'll start this up, and you will see a black line form. There it is. Gets very thick, and down here it will tell us that that black line is 2/13. And now it's up to the year 2019, and it will continue for up until about the year 2026, I believe. It will make this very strong 2/13 aspect. And that's why we're in 13 vibration. But I wanted to show you what's actually happening is that the distance between Neptune and Pluto is varying across these distances, making these fractions of a circle, and that's what's creating the vibration. Because several people have asked me about this. They're not clear about what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. As the planets in the sky, the angular distance changes, they go into certain fractions of a circle, and it creates a vibration. Okay, now, let me tell you what I think the candidates should do to win, all right? Here's what they should do. 13 vibration. Present your ideas clear and sharp. Do not adapt them to who you're speaking to. Don't adapt them in ways that you contradict yourself. Don't sell out. Don't try to be a people pleaser so much that you do not make it clear what you stand for. Be very consistent about what you stand for. And do not be afraid to step outside the box. This is what's happened. Obviously, look, on the Republican side in 2016, when the 13 vibration was strong then as well, somebody from outside the establishment who's outspoken, who's got his own ideas, who's not listening to what everybody else is telling him he should do, comes on the scene. People think, oh no, this outsider can't do it, and he does it. Donald Trump. What happens on the Democratic side? Same thing. In the form of Bernie Sanders, an outsider, outspoken, doesn't fit within the box, as I have here in the middle of this slide, break free from the usual way of thinking. We're in 13 vibe, and they're succeeding. Another thing is innovation and technology. Advice for the Republicans. If you want to win in 2020, you need to start promoting innovation and technology more, because you're getting a reputation of being not following science. People are saying that you don't believe in climate change, etc. You've got to make a strong statement that you are pro-innovation, the next breakthroughs of some kind. Even if you don't think climate change is real, do not stick to an old way of fossil fuels. Move into the future of solar energy. If you do this, the Republican Party would advance very, very rapidly, because it's 13 vibration. You all follow what I'm saying? So we can actually help people win. But the other thing is this: you can't just say it. You would have to believe it in your heart. The Republicans would have to wake up one morning and say, wow, we are the United States. We are the innovators. We are the people who create a new world. We built the Hoover Dam and all these things. We will build the next level of technology. We will get the university professors and the innovators creating this new way. This is what people are ready for. This is what's in the air. This is the time. We're in 13 vibration. It's not just our cell phones. It's my phone and the amazing internet and everything else, and all the gadgets and everything improving so rapidly. People want to see everything in this way. So that's something the Republicans can do better. They may not agree with me. It doesn't matter whether they agree with me or not. It doesn't even matter whether I agree with it outside of astrology. The astrology knows what's going on. And notice that the Democratic Party, which tends to help, put more emphasis on helping the poor, giving handouts, more welfare programs. Problem with that is it could be indulgent. It could just keep people from working. Why work if you're getting welfare? And what the Democrats have done is they've changed the storyline and said, excuse me, they're saying, no, you are the guys who are indulging. You Republicans are indulging. You're indulging the wealthy. You're taking all the money and giving it to them. It's not that we're indulging people. You are. So they've changed the conversation. And that's a plus. Smart move, Democrats. Keep doing that. Because people don't want indulgence, and you have to avoid indulgence. If any of your social programs are keeping people at some low level, take a hard look at it and get rid of it. You need to do things that make people move forward and innovate and break up indulgence. And in a way, the argument of the Democrats that the Republicans are indulging the wealthy, it's a strong argument, it's catching on, it makes sense, and it's winning. And that's what's propelled Bernie, and it's propelled the Democratic Party. A lot of people are saying they moved left. And more than moving left, what the Democratic Party has done is move away from the old way of being this nice, pleasant, middle-of-the-road, kind, helpful, humanitarian kind of party to being tough as nails, to kick butt, and to be confrontive, which is why people like Bernie have moved to the front, and other people are getting confrontive as well. Does it make sense? I hope you can see what's going on, because if the Democratic Party did not do that, they would be losing terribly. You've got to get in tune with the energy in some kind of positive way. And Hillary did not do that enough. And that's why she had it in her hands and lost it. Okay, now, here's some specific things that Bernie is not doing very well at the moment. And if I was his advisor, I would be yelling at him, telling Bernie, you've got to get this right, or you could possibly not get the nomination. I've got 5 things. Number 1, 5 things at the bottom here. Bernie says that Fidel Castro helped literacy. So people are criticizing Bernie and saying you're finding nice things to say about this cruel, totalitarian regime. What are you doing? Why are you making such a big deal that he helped literacy as if he's some wonderful guy? This doesn't make sense. It makes you look wishy-washy. Well, being wishy-washy, looking weak, looking like you don't have a clear stand on things is the worst thing to do in this time period. So that's making him look like he doesn't have a clear vision, that he's not drawing a line in the sand and saying no. So it doesn't matter whether Castro actually helped literacy or didn't. What matters, it does matter to some extent, but what really matters is not the facts, it's the impression and the message and what you stand for. So Bernie's got to make it very even stronger that he might say it's like he could use words like aberration, like it's an aberration, or It's, there's little spin-offs, and he's done that somewhat, but he can do it stronger. There'll be little positive spin-offs of something that's essentially not good. And here's one of the most difficult things for Bernie is that socialism, by definition, is against free enterprise. And I think what Bernie means by socialism is not that to remove all of free enterprise, and he says we're already socialistic, just socialistic for the rich, but I don't think he's making that message clear enough. So in the end, if people are looking at Bernie as hurting free enterprise and individualism and trying to socialize everything and not just socialize medicine, but going way beyond that, he needs to point out that our educational system is already socialized and how much we spend on it. He's got to make a clearer message that he is really the same as everybody else. He's really, in terms of being pro-enterprise and the power of human beings to innovate and set them free to be creative, because that's what 13 vibration is. He's been made out to be not clear and strong on gun control. And he said things like, I have a D- rating with the NRA, and I want the people, the voice of the people to be heard, and the people don't want these things. It's got coming out a little bit weak. So he should instead say something like, in the past, it was a different time than it is now. The number of murders and stuff has increased, the school shootings, and also I was just flat out wrong, and this is what I am today. And get into his uncompromising, strong statements. It's not just about what the people want, that this is going to happen and it's going to happen fast. Going to get rid of the assault weapons, blah, blah, blah. He kind of says that, but what I'm saying is it's not strong, sharp, hard, and fast enough as it could be. And he gets accused of not being clear about how to pay for the programs. Again, he can show more numbers to make it clear. I think one of the things with Bernie is that he's so honest and so factual that he's not willing to put some of these things down. I don't know what it is, but you've got to be sharp, clear, fast, on target to win with 13 vibration. And the claim that he can't beat Trump because he's, quote, too liberal, this is hurting as well, even though many of the polls show that he does as well against Trump as everyone else. The points need to just be drilled into people and made stronger if he wants to win. If you want Bernie to lose, then keep pushing these points. Just keep saying, oh, Bernie the socialist. He even calls himself a socialist. You keep driving those points. What does that mean? This socialism. So this is the kind of message that has to be clear. When a candidate succeeds, they make their point so strong that when people criticize them, it becomes clear that those critics are just looking for talking points, and they're not really true. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I think that's my last slide. Oh, one more. I want to mention this one last thing. Tomorrow, I'm making this on a Friday, the 28th. I believe tomorrow is the South Carolina primary, and the polls show that Joe Biden will, in fact, do very well, and he will win. And I watched a news thing, and the fellow said the reason why Biden is picking up is because people are realizing that Bernie is too extreme and they want to moderate. Wrong. That's not the reason. When Neptune and Pluto are in 13 vibration, people are not looking for moderates. That's not what's going on. What happened is that Biden came on so strong in the last debate. He kept saying, I am the guy who got this done. I am the guy who did this. Very fierce, very direct, very, unrelentingly strong and determined that he can lead and do this. And that's why his ratings go up. And while everybody was attacking Bernie and he had a little stumbling once in a while, it's going to help him, go strong. And he had the lead in South Carolina. It helps maintain that and even strengthen it. So it all depends on what people do. One last thing is that during that last debate, Buttigieg kept interrupting Sanders, talking over him. Klobuchar and others kept talking after their time was up. It's not going to hurt them terribly under 13 vibration, because at least they're being strong and forceful, but it can also look a little desperate or unprofessional, immature. So having that maturity, that depth, a little gravitas can help. The way you dress, the way you present yourself, strong and commanding, and not needing to plead for votes, but that you know that you're strong, and to think things through so that you really are confident to the core, and have your arguments very clear. This is what tends to win. Okay, and a kind of simple honesty, that you're not a fancy politician, you're straight and you're there for the people. I think all of them have communicated that pretty well. It's not like the old days when people were sort of, just these kind of people in gray suits, as they say. So, at least most of the candidates are that way. So that's it. I wanted to clarify some things about what we actually mean and by these different vibrations of the planets, to see that in the chart wheel, to understand what we really are seeing in astrology, that it's not a crystal ball, that our predictions are just likely outcomes based on the momentum, and everything depends on how people manage themselves. And my predictions change as I observe what people do. Last thing I want to say, just to make that clear, in 2016, when I saw Hillary following more of a 9 vibration approach rather than a 13 vibration approach a few days before the election, that's why I predicted Trump would do better. It's not just the astrology in the abstract. It's seeing what people do with that as astrological energy. How do they express it? What decisions are they making? And are they in tune? So there's some, you might say, subjective evaluation in terms of looking at what's going on in political analysis. It's one of the reasons why I like working in other areas, like what's in the charts of people with mental and emotional illness or the greatest athletes. It's more well-defined and measurable and clear. It's not as messy. There's not as many subjective evaluations going on. And I think political assessments will always be a little bit messy like that. And so that's the best we can do. So I hope that helps understand how we use vibrational astrology and some of the things that are, a necessary part of doing political astrology. Thank you very much for listening, my friends. God bless. Namaste.